Good morning, folks. It's Wednesday, August 21st. It's about 8:30 in the morning on the West Coast of the United States. In this video, we'll be looking at the drone stocks or some of the drone stocks. And I'm going to do double duty and we'll do technical analysis in this video. That's been my recent theme is trying to figure out how I can teach you guys technical analysis. I'm working on it, so I'll get better. So anyway, let's jump right in. So this first chart that we're looking at, it's actually an ETF. It's not a stock. Couple of things to say about this particular ETF. Number one, it's one of Cathie Wood's vehicles. If there's anything she appears to be good at, it's losing money. And so I would be very hesitant to invest in any vehicle that she's involved with because, again, it seems to be that she's very good at losing money. And then the second thing is, if we go look at the what's in this ETF, it's a basket of stocks. That's what an ETF is. Tesla, is Tesla doing drones? Not that I'm aware of. Maybe they are. I don't pay that much attention to Tesla. Teradyne, Kratos, Iridium, that's drones. So anyway, of these, I recognize that as a drone stock. That's a drone stock. John Deere tractors. What? What the heck is a tractor company doing in a drone ETF? And so anyway, that's a comment on this ETF. And you know what, folks? I'm not even going to do any technical analysis. After what I just said, it's Cathie Wood's. Those aren't drone stocks, in my opinion. So I'm going to skip right over that one. And we'll jump to Drone Shield Limited. Clearly, this is a drone stock. Currently, we're looking at it in the daily time frame. As I've been showing in my live technical analysis sessions, what I recommend is starting in the higher time frames, and I actually recommend in the monthly. But when we're dealing with new stocks, which, obviously it looks like they started in 2017, there's just not enough data to analyze in the monthly time frame for a stock that's new like this one. And so let's drop down to the weekly. And in my checklist, technical analysis checklist, I don't have it open to show you. The first thing I look for is support and resistance zones, and a reminder that those can be horizontal or they can be slanted. In this case, what jumps out to my eye before I draw anything, let me draw your attention to that area of this chart right here. And what I see is that, we get a gentle price rise here and then a gap. And then coincidentally, when price pulls back, well, it appears to be finding support above that gap. And so anyway, that is a horizontal support and resistance zone. So let's throw that on the chart. And there it is. And notice that I've drawn the bottom of the resistance zone along the top of the bodies of these candles. I don't ignore these, I call them pokey bars. These are the wicks, in this case, the upper wicks. I'm not ignoring these wicks. I'm basically looking at them as overthrows. And not that they aren't relevant to technical analysis, but when we are drawing on a chart, quite often our drawings, our analysis will be more valid if we focus on the body of candlesticks and ignore these wicks. And we'll see that one of these charts, we're going to see another example of this. So anyway, there is a horizontal support and resistance zone. You know, we could draw a simple trend line somewhere in here. Excuse me. We probably draw a trend line, something like that. And again, notice that I'm ignoring the lower wicks on those candles, basically looking at those as overthrows to the downside. Um, One of the things, you know, typically when I draw a simple trend line like that, one of the things I like to check to see if the trend line is valid is I duplicate the trend line and throw it to the other side of what could be a price channel. And that's exactly what I've done here. And so notice that, you know, there's price appears to be finding resistance along the top of that channel. There's support along the top of the channel, and then price comes back down and falls through. Another area for support and resistance is the moving averages, and in the weekly time frame, it's the 10-week and 40-week moving averages that are most relevant. We can see that the 10-week provided support. You know, here's price climbing up the 10-week moving average, at least until it rolled over. Didn't quite reach the 40-week moving average before it found support. Actually found support in this support and resistance zone. Let me get rid of that, and then we're going to drop down to the daily time frame. Well, let me back up on that. Let's go ahead. We'll throw MACD and stochastics on the chart. Just for grins, and then accumulation distribution as well. In this time frame, based on accumulation distribution, investors, they dumped this thing. And so up to this point, they were clearly accumulating shares. That's, you know, you see in the gentle increase in the indicator. For some reason, we got this bubble, basically it's a mountain, and we can see that in the accumulation distribution. But when the mountain peaked and then fell off, investors in the weekly time frame, they dumped this thing. MACD is clearly in bull mode, both indicator lines above the zero level of the indicator. That suggests that the primary trend in this vehicle in this time frame is to the upside, currently on a sell signal, but in bull mode. So primary trend based on MACD is to the upside. And we can see that here with this simple trend line. Well, obviously that's an upward sloping trend line, suggests that the primary trend is to the upside, at least until that trend line gets violated, invalidated. Price drops below that trend line. So, and then stochastics is my measurement, my quick measurement of energy, and we can see that you know, very little energy in this vehicle in this time frame. So, not terribly bullish in the weekly time frame. Let's drop down to the daily time frame. I'm going to pull those indicators off the chart for now, so they don't clutter. They're not cluttering the chart. And there's that's a tip. I'm not sure that I don't think I have that one on my checklist yet, so I'm going to make a note. What I've seen in my classes, and you know, I've been taking technical analysis classes. Well, I haven't in the last couple of years, but spent years taking miscellaneous technical analysis classes and participating in workshops. You know, live workshops where I got, you know, mentoring, group mentoring, and even some one-on-one mentoring with professional traders. And one of the things I saw in the group sessions is that cluttered charts. I mean, people that have 6 different indicators and lines going every which way and fancy colors and, no way in hell to make any sense out of their charts because there was just too much going on. And what I always remember in regards to that is that a confused mind says no. And so if you put too much stuff on your chart, what's likely to happen is that you're just going to confuse yourself and not be able to arrive at any useful conclusions. Indicators rarely agree with one another. And so you throw 2 or 3 indicators up on a chart and one says buy and the other one says sell. And you kind of is like, well, what do I do? And so anyway, that's in my opinion, that's an important tip when you're doing technical analysis. Keep your charts simple. Don't get them all cluttered. So back to the chart. Daily time frame, drone shield. We're continuing with the analysis that we did in our weekly time frame. And is there anything new here in the daily time frame for us to see? No, not really. So let's throw the indicators that I just pulled off the chart. Let's throw them back on there. MACD and stochastic. I didn't get MACD. MACD, there it is. And stochastics. Stochastic, so energy about mid-level, so that there is some energy in this vehicle. Now MACD, remember in the weekly time frame, bull mode, suggesting primary trend to the upside. Here in the daily time frame, MACD is in bear mode, both indicator lines below the 0 level of the indicator, albeit on a buy signal, which of course is bullish if you're looking to buy this thing. So, and not terribly surprising, the behavior we're seeing here in MACD. We get this big increase in price and then a big decrease in price. And in the process of burning off that much of its price, MACD became very oversold. And when MACD becomes very oversold, or the vehicle price becomes very oversold, quite likely that we'll get at least a bounce, if not a full-on reversal. And so not surprising that MACD is in bear mode after this price action, and bullish again that we've got a buy signal from MACD. And this is an example of kind of a conflicting signal from an indicator. So bear mode suggests that the primary trend is to the downside, and yet we've got a buy signal. So what are we going to do? And I leave that up to you to decide. And let me caveat that I'm not making any recommendations here. I don't invest in stocks other than mining stocks. I'm not recommending investments in drone stocks. This is just a long-term subscriber asked about this particular stock that we're looking at now, and here we are. We're looking at it. So, and the message is for anybody else seeing this video, if you've got a particular stock you'd like me to look at, a particular market, you want to look at wheat, live cattle, just put a comment in the put a comment on this video. Let me know what you want to look at, and I'll be happy to do it. So let's continue here. So, and then accumulation distribution, and this is intriguing to me, that we get this big fall off in accumulation distribution, that as price was rising here, investors were selling, and investors, I'm putting air quotes around investors, because this action actually makes me suspicious, makes me leery to see, as price is rising, there were big sellers, and I suspect that wasn't mom and pop. Those weren't mom and pop investors selling this thing. It was Wall Street hedge funds, speculators, perhaps the sponsors. I mean, this is still a pretty new stock. And one of the things that happens when a stock goes public, it's typically sponsored by one of the big houses. And they often take their payment in shares. And those shares have a holding period. And so the sponsors of a new stock, new ETF, new whatever, they hold their shares until the holding period expires, and then they start selling. That's how they get paid. That's how they make their money for sponsoring a new stock. And so it may be that they had that's a long holding period. What is that, 7 years? Okay, so that's too long a holding period. But anyway, I suspect that this was in institutional selling, which makes me leery of this stock, to tell you the truth. But then when we get down here after the big sell-off, we see that investors are coming back in. Now, are those mom and pop, organic investors looking to invest in drone stocks? Or is it just the institutional players, the speculators, the hedge funds, etc.? They basically picked this as a vehicle to ride up and down and make money on, basically separate mom and pop investors from their money. So anyway, the accumulation distribution makes me a little bit leery about this stock in general. Is there anything else we want to look at here? One of the things we might talk about if we were really interested in this stock is breakout trades. Currently this stock is, appears to be finding support, pretty strong support at this level. And so we might argue that, hey, that's not a bad point to buy. If we were breakout traders, we might wait to see, at least a break above this, the top of that channel. And if we were even more conservative, we'd wait for the breakout and then the pullback. So we don't always get a pullback on a breakout, but quite often price will break out of a resistance area level and then pull back to test that resistance for support. So in an uptrend, resistance becomes support. And so that might be a strategy for playing this particular stock. Wait for a breakout and a pullback. Let's look at the moving averages and then we'll move on. And in the daily, I like to look at the 20, the 50, and the 200. Those are the most common. Let me get rid of those. Most common moving averages in the daily time frame. And so again, this is similar to what we saw. The 200-day moving average, it's the same as the 40-week moving average in the weekly time frame. And like we saw in the weekly time frame, price didn't make it down to that level before it found support. It found support up here in the support and resistance zone. 20-day moving average currently acting as resistance. We see that price is kind of bouncing between the support at the top of the zone, the simple trend line. We got those two overthrows. If I were interested in investing in the stock, and really, notice we're talking about this is currently it's at 78 cents, well under $1, has never been more than $2. It's not, well, actually right now it is penny stock. It's less than $1. So penny stocks, high risk. Can we call that an investment? Well, if we're talking about mining stocks, I quite often talk about penny stocks in the mining sector as investment. So I guess we'll call this an investment if you want to think of it that way. But caveat, this is a penny stock, a high risk. So let's keep moving. Unusual machines. you know, like I said before, same thing. See here, this particular stock, it hasn't even been around for a year. So in the weekly time frame, you know, there's nothing we can say about that stock. There's just not enough data in the weekly time frame. Did we look at, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing here, folks. Which suggests maybe we're better off looking at charts that I've marked up before we go looking at them live. Volume, or anything interesting about volume in this chart? Well, clearly, we had increasing volume as price was rising, which is bullish in and of itself. You know, that's exactly what we want to see. As price is rising, we want to see volume rise along with price, and that's exactly what we're seeing there. But I'm drawn back to the accumulation distribution. This rising volume, a lot of it was selling. For whatever reason, investors, there I go again, in my opinion, it was speculators, manipulators, people trying to separate you from your hard-earned money. They were selling this thing. And so we need to be careful talking about rising volume with price increasing. A lot of that volume is selling volume. Big spike in volume after price has declined. That's this bar here. We don't have a big capitulation. So oftentimes at the end of a downtrend, we see a big spike in volume as investors, people who are involved in the vehicle, they basically bail. They're puking their shares out into the market. They've experienced enough pain. They don't care how much money they're going to lose. They just let me out of this thing, please. And they sell at market, and we see a big increase in volume. But that's not what I'm seeing here. That this is more likely buying volume. And again, my cynical perspective, those buyers were stock manipulators, not long-term investors in drone technology, people trying to make a buck playing the stock market. But, you know, that's just Brian stating his opinion. So moving on, unusual machines, daily time frame. You know, similar, let's scooch that up a bit. We can do a simple trend line. I'm going to throw it, you know, somewhere like that. Notice that I'm using that as a support level. And then again, excuse me, I'm drawing the simple trend line along the bottom of the body of these candles, and I'm not doing that. You know, a lot of technical analysts, you'll see them draw a simple trend line like this, using the lowest price point for drawing their lines. And what I found in my technical analysis experience, you know, 15 years or so, that's not the most valid thing to do. That ignoring those pokey bars, the wicks on candles, is quite often a better thing to do. And so what we're seeing here is what I was explaining on the last chart. Simple trend line. We duplicate that line and then throw it onto the other side of what could be a price channel. And that's exactly what we see here is that, well, looky there, price reaches that level, finds resistance. We get an overthrow, pokey bars over the top of that channel, and then back in, support, resistance again, support. And so anyway, at this point in our technical analysis, we've identified a support level at the simple trend line, a resistance level at the top of the channel. And so we've identified a price channel. We can, if you're a range trader, we could trade this as a range. I'm going to buy down here, I'm going to sell up here, simple range, until price does something different. And something different would be a breakout of this range. It breaks above that level, it breaks below that level. So anyway, just in drawing a few lines, 2 lines, we've got some fairly useful information. So let's keep rolling here. What do we want to look at next? I'm not seeing any horizontal levels that catch my eye. I'll show you another trick that I do sometimes. Let's go to the settings on this bar, and I'm going to extend it to the left, just to see how, after we've identified a price channel, sometimes when we extend the line backwards, we'll see that price was already reacting at the top of the channel. In this case, it's top of the channel because it's upward sloping. And so we can see, price drops down there, doesn't really find support at that level, bounces a little bit, breaks through to the downside, tests it. And then here we see price really starts to interact closely with that level, resistance, 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 and then we drop off. So anyway, that's another thing. If you're looking to validate the validity of a price channel, sometimes extending it backwards in time is a useful thing to do. Anything in volume of interest? Not particularly. Let's throw the indicator. Well, let's look at the moving averages first. And daily time frame, we want to look at the 20 and the 50-200. Notice that we only got 2 lines. And so there isn't enough data for this particular vehicle to draw a 200-day moving average. And that's what's missing. We should be seeing a 3rd line here. It would be dark blue, the 200-day moving average, but we don't have enough data. So all we've got is 50 and the 20. We can see price right now is playing around the 50, playing on both sides of the 50-day moving average. So not a lot of useful information there. Let's look at the indicators that I commonly use. Energy, very low, but rising sharply off that low level, which suggests that more people are becoming interested in this thing. MACD in bull mode on a sell signal. Notice that the histograms is moving back towards the upside and has turned from dark red to light red. And so the histograms are kind of a hint, a look ahead, if you will, as to what's happening with momentum. And so the histograms are suggesting that when they were dark red, that is increasing momentum to the downside. And then when they change to the light red or the pink, that means or indicates that downward momentum is easing. And then we're seeing it ramp up. We can see it in the blue indicator line as well. Notice that it has, it's really flat at this point, but could be hinting at a turn back to the upside. So that's enough about MACD. Accumulation distribution, this is another one that makes me wonder. And let's point out again, this is penny stock. So currently at $1 well, it's not a penny stock. It's under $2, but essentially a penny stock that we need to be careful with. And this is interesting in the accumulation distribution. And this may be an example of what I was referring to on the previous chart. somebody sponsored this vehicle when it went public. And not uncommon that they took their payment in shares of the stock, and that they agreed to hold those shares for some period of time. And that may be what we're seeing right there is the sponsor at this point. He'd been in the thing for February, March, only 2 months, 60 days. I've never looked at what's the common holding period. Perhaps it was only 60 days. And what we're seeing here is the sponsor dumping his shares. He's saying, I don't want to be in this thing. This thing's, well, I won't go there. But anyway, that may be what we're seeing in this dramatic downward movement in accumulation distribution. Somebody dumped a whole bunch of shares. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if it was the sponsor taking his payment. And of course, over time, this kind of action gets hidden. A year from now, assuming the stock is still around, that action, most people aren't going to look that far in the backwards in time. And then the ongoing action will also serve to mute the dramatic change in accumulation distribution. So comment on this stock and the previous stock we looked at in regards to accumulation distribution, and here this big price rise and decline. If I was really interested in drone stocks, and these two stocks in particular, my next step, long before I put any of my money at risk, I'd be doing some more research. I'd want to understand, okay, why did we get this big increase? Was it a bullish earnings statement? And then same question, what happened here? What caused that big decline? One of the things we can look at here in TradingView, that's the charting vehicle we're looking at. If we look at events, splits, earnings, and so really it's earnings that I'm curious about. So we've got an earnings coming up soon, but I'm not seeing any other events that would explain that price behavior there. Let's do the same thing in this vehicle, earnings, dividend splits. So we got an earnings statement there. And so probably they said, hey, our stock's going to go to the moon. It didn't. And we just had an earnings statement here, didn't get a big reaction to that earnings statement. And so probably it wasn't as bullish. Hey, we realized that our stock isn't going to the moon, but you still ought to buy some. So, and investors are doing what investors are going to do. So anyway, I'd want to understand what is the history of these things, who sponsored it, how long was their holding period, anyway, be careful. And that's my underlying message, certainly at this point in the financial markets, folks. Be careful. Gosh, there is so much going on. We got an election coming up. We've got expectation of interest rate cuts again, which that is not what I expect. But if you listen to the talking heads, that's what they're talking about right now is rate cuts. I think expectations of almost a full point in 2024. And here we are, it's almost September. And so some people are talking about a half-point cut in September. And that's some of the excitement over the last 2 weeks or so in the equity markets, is this expectation of rate cuts. Not what I expect. The talking heads, they're trying to make money. And one of the key ways that they make money is by manipulating you and I to put our money at risk in the markets. And so they say one thing, we go invest on the assumption that what they're saying is true. And of course, they had no intention of doing that. They're going to do exactly the opposite, and we're going to lose money. And so be careful. Be careful. That's my message. Be careful listening to the talking heads. In particular, this year, an election coming up, the Fed hinting at rate cuts or talking heads. I don't know that Chairman Powell come out and said, hey, we're going to cut rates? No, it's just traders and analysts, pundits, making noises about, oh, well, the Fed's going to cut rates because X, Y, and Z. And so anyway, enough of me rambling. Let's keep rolling here. So Red Cat Holdings, we're in the daily time frame. Let's go to the weekly time frame. What is going on there? So when I see something like this is a red flag on the play, danger, Will Robinson. The first thing I would do before I went any further with this particular vehicle is I'd want to understand what the heck happened. And my guess is, based on, this ain't my first rodeo, this ain't the first stock I've looked at that looks like this. Somebody, Red Cat Holdings, they went and found a shell corporation, a corporation that was, either no longer operating or was essentially dead. And they bought it and they repurposed it, renamed it as Red Cat Holdings. Let's see if we look at events again. Is there anything obvious in here? So we don't have any events for this particular vehicle. That's interesting. Which makes me, did I actually turn those? Yep, they're turned on. So no events. But yeah, that price action is very disconcerting. But again, we got a lot of data on there, 2003. Yeah, almost certainly this corporation was something else. It got purchased at some point and changed to Red Cat Holdings. Oh, I bet we're not seeing events because we're in the monthly time frame. So let's drop down to, well, wait a minute. Technical analysis, me babbling. I forgot to do. Yeah, see the change in the price behavior is so dramatic. I did 64,000. There's definitely something funky going on with this particular stock. And there's our event. So we don't see events in the monthly time frame. We get them in the weekly. And so we can see earnings statements. There was a stock split. 1 for 1,200. Now I tell you, if that doesn't pique your interest, that's interesting. 1 for 1,200. And again, that's part of, they're trying to, whoever's managing this stock is trying to make it look like a legitimate investment vehicle. And the way they do that is by, well, they've got to hide all this action. And of course, with time, it'll fade into the background. Nobody's going to go 2003. It's 2024. That was 21 years ago. Who cares? Well, if you're looking for a solid, safe, long-term investment, we care, or we should care. Well, how many different ways is this stock being manipulated? Well, let's see. They started by buying a shell corporation. Then they did a stock split, 1 for 1,200. Hello. Yeah, let's keep rolling. Back to the weekly time frame. What can we see here? Let's start with support and resistance. First thing that pops into or catches my eye is that we've got, we can see resistance, support, resistance, support, resistance, support, so on and so forth. And it appears that we're at that level. Notice that it's right in the $2.95 to $3. And as I've said before, round numbers quite often serve as support and resistance. Yeah, look at that, $3. And so part of what's going on there is that it's a round number. And that's a human psychology thing that traders, when they're looking for a price target, where am I going to take profits? And because there's nothing else to go on, they might pick a round number. And so $3 appears to be the case here. So there's a resistance level, price currently poking up into that level. Let's take a look at the moving averages, 10 and the 40 week. Don't really give us a lot of information, so let's get rid of them. Indicators, moving average, stochastics, get rid of that. Energy, very elevated, so lots of energy in this thing. And of course, not surprising, we didn't need stochastics to see that there was a lot of energy in this vehicle. We could see it right there in price action. MACD in bull mode, both indicator lines above the zero level on a buy signal, so bullish in MACD. And as I've explained before, if we use MACD as a overbought, oversold indicator, we got long ways for price to increase before it reaches this overbought level based on MACD. Accumulation distribution, this isn't really surprising. Some of that's probably the stock split. Where was the stock split? Did it go away? Why do I keep losing my, not sure why it keeps where's that stock split? I think we're going to see. So there's the split. Oh, okay. So it wasn't, we're not seeing okay. So no change, which makes sense. You know, the stock split doesn't affect the people who are currently holding. A split doesn't affect them. They're still effectively holding the same number of shares. And so no change in accumulation distribution. That action looks like it's around earnings. Current action, you know, accumulate investors or speculators currently buying this thing. Let's see, anything else there? Volume doesn't really tell us anything. Oh, we were in the weekly time frame when I put those indicators on. So that action bothers me. I'd want to do some research and understand what's going on there. Why when this there's an earnings statement saying that, why after that earnings statement did people decide, hey, I don't want to be in this thing anymore? So that would be something to investigate. Let's drop down to the daily. Anything useful here? You know, again, accumulation, MACD in bull mode, elevated energy. So there's certainly some bullish indicators in this stock. As a conservative investor, I'd treat this thing, again, if I were interested, and I'm not, don't invest in stocks other than mining stocks, and I'm not recommending that anyone else does. We're simply we're looking at drone stocks because someone expressed interest in drone stocks, and I'd like to teach you guys technical analysis. I'm trying to share the knowledge that I've gained over the last 10, 15 years of looking at charts. Thousands and thousands of charts, folks, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating there. And so anyway, one of the strategies that we might employ here is, again, the breakout. You know, we might wait for a definitive breakout above that level, and then again a pullback. with the expectation that maybe then price would, to the moon, Alice, to the moon, which, of course, stocks don't grow to the sky. Trees don't grow to the sky. They grow towards the sky. They never reach it. And stocks don't reach the sky anyway. So a number of things to be leery of in this particular stock. And again, $3. So $3. And I guess, based on price, not terribly surprising that a number of these drone stocks are low price. Drone technology is fairly new. And so, these are these are startup companies. In this particular case, they started with a shell corporation and repurposed it. I haven't done the research to prove that, but I think if we spent 5 minutes, we'd discover that this stock started as something else. Let's keep rolling. AeroVironment, 188. And so, after that conversation about penny stocks and new stocks, clearly when we see a stock at $188, that's not a new stock. Let's jump up to the monthly time frame. Hadn't been around too long, 2007. So big gain there. And so I'd want to understand, if I were interested in this vehicle, I'd want to understand what happened back here to cause this thing to jump. Another thing I would want to look into because of the price of this particular stock is what else are they involved in? I suspect that the company is doing more than drones, or they wouldn't be at $188 a share. And so as investors, if you were looking for, hey, I want to invest in drone technology, you might choose to pass on this particular vehicle because they're doing other stuff, airplanes, who knows, without going and researching this particular corporation. But just based on the price action, I would suggest that they're doing more stuff than just drones. And along those same lines, Boeing and Northrop Grumman. If you're looking for who are the big boys in the drones, drone technology and drone stocks, well, it's Boeing and Northrop Grumman. But again, Boeing's doing all kinds of stuff other than drones or in addition to drones. And so you invest in Boeing, you're investing in their 767s, their 787s, which if you follow the aviation industry, Boeing airplanes are not doing all that well. They're having quality issues. And then Northrop Grumman, same thing, defense company. They're in all kinds of technology besides drones or in addition to drones. And so I'm not even looking at Boeing and Northrop Grumman stocks because I'm focusing now on drones. And I'm not. Let's not spend any time looking at that particular stock simply based on its price. They're doing more than drones. So Kratos, $20 stock. Let's spend a little bit of time here. Let's pop up to the monthly. This is another one that red flag on the play. I'd want to understand what happened here. And my guess is that this is another example of Kratos bought a shell corporation and repurposed it. Let's look at accumulation distribution. So we don't see, well, yeah, there's the if we focus back in time from the start, we can see that this thing went public. And then we get this big drop off in shares. Well, of course, interesting. Notice the timing there. 2000, that was the peak of the dot-com bubble. So not surprising that we see a big decline, people dumping this thing. People were dumping all tech stocks, after the dot-com bubble. 2001, 2002, those were not good years to be involved in the equity markets, and certainly not in tech stocks. And so that's not surprising. Let's go back to the other end of the time frame. Is there anything remarkable? Let's get rid of that in this monthly time frame. No, not really. Let's drop down to the weekly. Same kind of thing we did before. Simple trend line. I used the bottom of the candle bottoms. And let me scooch this up a little bit. Oops, that wasn't what I want to do. Scooch that up where we can see it better. And so again, notice that I'm drawing my simple trend line along the bottom of these candles, bottom of these that particular candle there. Although in this case, I don't think that's kind of an anomaly, because look, we've got this one candle down here, but then I got a whole series, and I got this one. So I'm going to scooch this up a little bit, which I think is where I started. To my eye, that is a better simple trend line. That's just an anomaly, which, things happen. So, and now to test the validity of this simple trend line, let's copy it and then duplicate it, and then go look. If we throw it up at the top of the price action, does it look like we've identified a valid channel? In this case, it's not as obvious, albeit, we could talk about those two candles finding resistance at the top of that channel. Here, clearly, that's resistance at the top of the channel. Again, range trade, if you want to look at it that way, within that price channel. Horizontal resistance in this level, or in this time frame, excuse me, I'd go do this. Oops, sorry, let me get rid of that, start over. These pokey bars catch my eye as potential support, well, not support, resistance zone at this point. Hasn't been tested for support. So all we can say is that it's resistance, unless maybe if we extend it backwards in time. Well, yeah, there we go. So resistance, impulsive push through up into the zone, drop back, resistance, 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 support, support, support. So we can talk about that being a support resistance zone, but currently price is finding resistance at that level. Folks, I've been rambling long enough. I feel like we're declining value in technical analysis teaching. Drone stocks, not particularly interesting to me. There are some interesting tangents that I've been able to share with you in regards to the ways that stocks are managed. And as if you've paying attention to me, you notice that sometimes I say managed, sometimes I say manipulated. All depends on your perspective. So here's another good example. This is Workhorse Group. This is daily time frame. I did a little bit of research because I noticed the price action here, and it struck me that yeah, this started as, this was a shell corporation that got repurposed, and I went and looked, and yeah, it was AMP Electric Vehicles. Let's go to the weekly time frame in this thing. And God, I'm bringing out the cynical in me this morning. I'm not a fan of electric vehicles. I think it was a fad. The battery technology is just not there yet to support electric vehicles. Um, basically without subsidies from the government, very few people would have bought electric vehicles, in my opinion. One of the things that owners of electric vehicles are discovering right now is that there is no market for used electric vehicles. And that's a discovery that owners are are finding to their dismay. Can't sell the darn thing after you've bought it, or you can't sell it for what you think it's worth. And of course, the government subsidy totally wrecks the the value. In your mind, you bought a $80,000 electric vehicle, but you got a $10,000 subsidy from the government. Well, so is it an $80,000 vehicle or a $70,000 vehicle? As a used car buyer, that's a $70,000 vehicle. So you think it's worth 80,000? To me, it was only worth $70,000 on day one, and then of course when you drove it off the lot, it lost at least 20% of its value. But we aren't here to talk about cars, other than to point out that this corporation clearly started as something else. June 17, actually, that's down here. They did a 1-for-20 reverse stock split, which explains some of this price action. If we drop down to the daily time frame, we can see, June 17, there's the stock split. Investors are just not interested in this thing. And of course, if they're doing their research, doing their investigation before putting their hard-earned money at risk, there's a number of red flags on this thing just from the get-go. And so not terribly surprising to me that this thing is dropping off into irrelevance, penny stock, down into penny stock territory. And the fact that it was started as EV, well, we don't know without going and looking way back in long ago. Where did this corporation actually start? It's been repurposed at least once. It was electric vehicles, and now it's drones. Actually, when I was doing this little bit of research this morning, looking at this particular stock, you can go look. The Workhorse Group, there's actually a Wikipedia page that'll talks about the history of this stock. My quick impression of skimming through the Wikipedia page is that the person who is currently managing this stock, I forget if CEO of this company, whatever, the flattering way to describe him might be a serial entrepreneur. The cynical way to describe him would be he's looking for a stock that he can manipulate and get rich on. He tried it with electric vehicles and failed. Now he's trying it with drone stocks, and based on his price action, it looks like he's failing with drones, same way he failed with electric vehicles. But that just Brian stating his opinion here, folks. And if you have a different opinion, share it. Throw it in the comments down below. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you if you have a different opinion about this. UAVS, what's higher time frames? Same story, folks. How do we go from $360 to it's a penny stock? And again, if you were looking for a long-term safe investment, this is, in my opinion, this ain't it. you know, and you look at a stock and you see this kind of stuff, you just, yeah, stay away. You know, it's the Lost in Space. It's the robot waving his arms. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Enough of that. I'm wrapping up here, folks. These last three charts, these are clearly penny stocks, but notice that they're listed on the NASDAQ. And so interesting that we've got penny stocks on the NASDAQ. I believe they're at risk of being delisted because they've dropped to that price level. Same thing here. Let's see. Nope, this one's over the counter. So this one does not have a listing on any of the major indexes. Excuse me, currently. Another penny stock. Archer Aviation, almost $4. So it's not a penny stock, and it's on the NYSE. Is there anything else we want to look at here? I'd be concerned about this price action. You know, what happened here to cause that big drop off? Let's look at accumulation distribution. Yeah, see, as I suggested earlier, well, I was about to talk about sponsors and sponsors dumping their shares to get paid. Let's see, that was middle of December, January, February, 90 days. So two possibilities here that come to mind based on this accumulation distribution. The first one is, you know, the sponsors, they had a 90-day, in this case, they had a 90-day holding period. On day 91, they started selling their shares to get paid. And so that's why it could be why we're seeing this big drop off in accumulation distribution. The other possibility that just occurred to me is that this phenomena may be related to the fact that we don't have any more data, that it takes this long for the data to come in before we start getting valid or real numbers from the accumulation distribution indicator. And that's something I'll have to dig into that, because this is the first time that thought has occurred to me. So, but anyways, based on this price action, I'd be leery of this particular stock. Again, let's look at events. Is there anything interesting? Earnings. Yeah. Look at that. Just a steady, investors are just not interested in the stock, steady dumping of shares. So be careful. That's all I got, folks. Hopefully I've provided some value in this video. You know, this was the main stock that I wanted to look at because, again, a subscriber had expressed interest in this stock. So I'm going to wrap it up here, folks. Let me stop sharing my screen, and I will talk to you soon.